was not lost on David Crawford's daughter.
You got to tell the truth, son.
We right here.
I was not there.
Saying pull the trigger, the killer's done. He's now basically done already.
This is Nikolas Lindsay, a 16-year-old who is in court facing a murder charge for the cold-blooded murder of a police officer in St. Petersburg, Florida. It was 2011 and authorities said that a decorated officer with over 2 decades on the force, Officer David Crawford, responded to a suspicious activity call, a report of someone breaking into cars. That someone was Nikolas Lindsay, and when Crawford attempted to question him, Lindsay didn't run. He opened fire and shot the police officer 5 times. Crawford collapsed, and by the time backup arrived at the scene, it was too late for the officer.
Quarter B, I got shots fired over here. Shots fired. I got an officer shot. 4th Avenue South. Tell them to step it up.
This was the first police transmission made after Officer David Crawford was shot and killed.
Lindsay vanished into the night, sparking a manhunt throughout the state, and for 24 hours he was on the loose. But it wouldn't last because authorities released the surveillance footage showing Lindsay's escape. Tips began pouring in, and they finally tracked him down. Once in police custody, it wasn't the police who broke him down, it was his parents who begged their son to tell the truth.
I told my son, man up and tell what happened. And he did that.
I did not do it, and I'm telling you, I did not do it.
Who did it?
You got to tell the truth, son.
We right here.
I was not there.
Lindsay keeps repeating that it wasn't him.
We're trying to help you.
This is our point.
You need to talk to us.
That tape would later be played in court while Lindsay was charged as an adult with first-degree murder. In court, the prosecution laid it out for the jury carefully.
That man is that man right there, Nikolas Lindsay Jr.
The key word being man. The state portrayed 17-year-old Nikolas Lindsay as a grown-up, an adult, who knowingly fired his .380 semi-automatic pistol at Officer David Crawford 5 times.
When the shooter got through shooting, he ran away, leaving Officer David Crawford dying in the street, lying in a pool of his own blood.
But his defense attorney had a different picture to paint for the jury.
You're going to have to get into what's going on in his mind. He's scared. He's got a gun on him. What does he do? The officer comes up. He motions at him. Nikolas is going to tell you in his statement that as he pulled the gun out to show his hands, he didn't know the safety was on and the gun went off.
One of the most touching moments in the courtroom, though, was when Lindsay's father took to the stand to apologize to the family of his son's victims.
On behalf of me, my son, and our entire family, we should not deep so sympathy to the family and his colleague that he worked with. It's not only son, no son that it happened.
But no apology could erase the prosecution's case. The jury didn't take long. Nikolas Lindsay was convicted of first-degree murder. Also, Lindsay's father was the only person who was feeling any kind of remorse because his son sure wasn't. A year later, Nikolas is back in court, appealing his sentence. His request is denied, with the judge upholding the decision of the former trial.
Life at the sentence review hearing after 25 years is the only proper sentence.
Once again, Nikolas Lindsay was sentenced to spend the rest of his life behind bars for the murder of St. Pete officer David Crawford in 2011.
As the judge handed down the sentence, Lindsay sat there grinning. Nikolas Lindsay left his father to do the apologizing for him, but for this defendant, he exploded during his sentencing, and his family joined in the chaos. This is Dexter Johnson, an 18-year-old teenager from Texas now in court, facing charges of first-degree murder for a double killing. Reports say it all began on June 18, 2006. 23-year-old Maria Aparece was sitting in her parked car with her 17-year-old boyfriend, Hui Ngo, when they were ambushed by Johnson and his gang. The group carjacked the couple and drove them to a remote area. And there, the nightmare began. Johnson sexually assaulted Maria, while her boyfriend was forced to listen and watch. Then Johnson and one of his accomplices marched the couple into the woods and executed them both. Investigators were able to track Johnson down after he used Maria's stolen credit card to purchase some items. He was arrested, charged with capital murder, and brought to trial. The jury didn't need long to decide that Johnson was guilty, and now at the sentencing phase, Johnson stood to learn his fate.
Dexter Johnson, the jury has found you guilty of capital murder. In accordance with the laws of the state of Texas, this court hereby assesses your punishment of death. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is going to complete your jury service.
What followed was pure chaos. Johnson, visibly upset, suddenly exploded, yelling uncontrollably as deputies rushed to subdue him. The courtroom was thrown into disorder, and in the hallway, things only got worse. Emotions boiling over, family members collapsing. One police officer was forced to call for medical assistance. Eventually, Johnson was cuffed and removed from court. His execution, however, was later halted by a federal court due to claims of intellectual disability, and he remains on death row till date. Dexter Johnson's courtroom outburst came after the verdict. But how does that compare to a defendant who laughed during trial, mocked his victim's family with gang signs, and when the sentence dropped, snapped, triggering an all-out courtroom eruption that even his family joined? And this is Shaendell Jackson, a 19-year-old man standing in a Maryland courtroom, facing charges of first-degree murder and armed robbery. The victim was 24-year-old Nathan Potter, and he was gunned down during what prosecutors call a senseless and cold-blooded robbery. The year was 2009, and an 18-year-old Jackson and an accomplice crossed paths with Potter one night. According to investigators, their intent was robbery. But when they realized Nathan had no money on him, that was when everything escalated. Instead of walking away, Shaendell Jackson pulled out a weapon and fired with no hesitation. Then he fled the state, disappearing across lines into Mississippi in a desperate bid to outrun justice. But the law soon caught up with him. In Jackson's case, it was a tip from his own uncle that led to his arrest in Gulfport and his extradition back to Maryland.
And I believe I did the right thing, and there's nobody can make me change that.
In court, the prosecution laid it all bare. The robbery, the shooting, and the attempted escape. Jackson's defense attorney tried to sway the court to his client's favor. His mother herself pleaded for mercy from the bench not to throw her son's life away.
On the news, I even cried. I'm like, oh my God, I can't imagine what that mother is going through. I never had a clue that my child had anything to do with it. My son is not a monster. He is not a monster.
But Jackson himself wasn't begging for anything. Throughout the trial, courtroom cameras caught him laughing. At one point, he even flashed gang signs at the grieving family of his victim. The pain in the room was unbearable, and the disrespect was unmistakable. It didn't take long. The jury returned with their verdict, guilty on all counts.
Mr. Jackson to life imprisonment without possibility for extended supervision. I know that that is something that is reserved for the most serious of cases.
Then came sentencing, and that's when Shaendell Jackson snapped, with security rushing to hold him back as the courtroom erupted into chaos. But the outburst didn't come from Jackson alone. His family, who had been silent throughout the trial, also joined in the outburst. Shaendell Jackson laughed, taunted, and threw gang signs at a grieving family. But at least he waited until after the verdict was read. As for this defendant, he showed his complete lack of remorse from the moment he stepped into the courtroom. This is TJ Lane, a 17-year-old from Chardon, Ohio, standing in court on 3 counts of aggravated murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. On February 27, 2012, at around 7:30 a.m., classes hadn't even started when Lane entered the cafeteria with a .22 caliber pistol concealed beneath his coat. Students were eating breakfast or just idle chatting while waiting for classes to begin. Then came the shots. Within seconds, chaos shattered the morning routine, with students scrambling under tables, bolting for the hallways, and others cowering in fear. The first 911 call came in at 7:36 a.m.
911, where's your emergency?
We just had a shooting at our school. We need to get out of here. Oh my God.
Okay, ma'am, we got a school shooting. Ma'am, what school?
Chardon High School.
Chardon High School?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
More calls followed.
You seen him shoot how many?
I saw him take out 2, and then I was gone. I was out of there.
Okay, were the students still alive?
I just know, ma'am. I didn't even check. I just got out of there as fast as I could.
Terrified parents were stuck outside without knowing the whereabouts of their children. Teachers kept the classrooms on lockdown while police officers raced to the school environment. Lane didn't stop until assistant football coach Frank Hall, hearing the screams, rushed toward the sound of gunfire and chased Lane from the building. Lane then fled into the woods, only to be picked up and arrested by police a short time later.
I don't know why this happened. I only wish I could have done more. I'm not a hero. Just a football coach and a study hall teacher.
3 lives were lost that day. 16-year-old Daniel Parmertor, who had just won a scholarship to a computer science program, 17-year-old Russell King Jr., a standout football player with a promising future, and 16-year-old Demetrius Hewlin, who died later at the hospital from the injuries he sustained. Another victim, Nick Walczak, was left paralyzed. All of the victims were classmates and very familiar faces to Lane, and it was later revealed that one of the victims had recently started dating Lane's ex-girlfriend, a detail which the authorities believed may have sparked his deadly rage.
Prosecutors have said publicly that T.J. Lane chose his targets at random. But investigators tell CBS News that he knew his alleged victims well, and that one of the key factors that may have led to the shooting was that Lane's girlfriend had broken up with him the week before and started dating one of the boys he allegedly killed.
Still, when the charges came, 3 counts of aggravated murder and 2 of attempted murder, Lane pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but a psychiatric evaluation said otherwise. The court found him competent to stand trial, and Lane quickly changed his plea to guilty, hoping to avoid the death penalty.
Ben, as to count 1, do you plead guilty to on or about February 27, 2012 at Chardon County, Ohio, purposefully and with prior calculation and design causing the death of Demetrius Hewlin, being aggravated murder? Yes.
But it was one thing to plead guilty, it was another thing to show genuine remorse, and Lane did not have any intentions of doing so. On the sentencing day, March 19, 2013, Lane walked into the courtroom to learn his fate.
This is the case of the state of Ohio against Thomas M. Lane.
He was wearing a white undershirt with one word scribbled across the chest in black ink: killer.
Thank you, Your Honor. To my left is Nikolas, Chardon County Assistant Prosecutor.
And when he addressed the families of his victims, it was with no remorse whatsoever.
I'm saying to pull the trigger, the killer's done. Now, basically not ready. Okay.
T.J. Lane was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. But the horror didn't end there. In 2014, Lane escaped prison with 2 other inmates using a makeshift ladder. He was recaptured within hours, earning himself additional charges.
Teenager convicted of a high school shooting that killed 3 students is back in custody after daring escape overnight. T.J. Lane climbed a prison fence last night with 2 prison inmates.
T.J. Lane wore a killer shirt to sentencing and delivered a haunting final insult to his victims' families. But Danta Wright didn't need a shirt. His lack of remorse got even the judge shocked. This is Danta Wright, a teenager who is facing charges of murder in a court in Michigan. It was the fall of 2016 in Ann Arbor, Michigan, when Danta Wright, along with Delreno Gracie and Jermarius Ellison, came up with a plan. They were going to rob someone, anyone. They just wanted cash, and they wanted it now. That night, they lured Jordan Klee, someone Wright knew personally under the guise of a meetup. But what Jordan didn't know was that he wouldn't survive the encounter. The robbery quickly spiraled into something far more sinister. 18-year-old Jordan Klee, a promising high school football player with dreams of going pro, had a tight-knit family, and a community that adored him was shot to the back of his head and killed by Danta Wright. Wright and his co-defendants fled, but the trail they left as they went on the run didn't stay cold for long. Police immediately zeroed in on the suspects and their activities after piecing together digital footprints and eyewitness accounts, and all 3 teenagers were arrested. In court, Gracie and Ellison both took plea deals and were handed 15 to 40-year sentences. As for Danta Wright, he also agreed to a plea deal, avoiding life without parole by pleading guilty to multiple charges, including armed robbery, conspiracy, and second-degree murder. And while the legal system gave Wright leniency, the courtroom was expecting something in return: remorse. Instead, they got quite the opposite. As Jordan's grieving family poured their pain into the courtroom, Danta Wright sat there grinning.
I sincerely hope that whatever it was you wanted so badly that you felt the need to murder my son was worth the next at least 52 years of your continued existence. You won't get the luxury of raising your child because you took mine away.
And then, Danta got the opportunity to address the court, to take some responsibility for his actions, to express regret, to apologize. But Wright did none of that.
I just want to tell y'all, I'll be home soon, or I'll be Keon. I love my family.
That's all you got to say.
The reaction was instant. Judge David Schwartz, a man who'd spent over 2 decades presiding over cases like this, was left visibly stunned.
Never in 23 years approximately ever not accepted a sentence agreement between the parties because it's a bargained for sentence by the parties. But watching you sit there, smile and laugh and shake your head like this was no big deal, I'm very tempted to just say, I'm not going to accept this sentence agreement. We'll go to trial. And if you're convicted of felony murder, you'll go to prison for the rest of your life. That means you'll die there. That's what I'm tempted to do.
The judge does have the authority to reject the plea deal.
Mr. Bello, do you want me to accept this sentence agreement?
Your Honor, before I answer the court's question, I would like an opportunity to discuss it with the victim's family.
Okay.
If the court would pass it, I would appreciate it.
I'd be happy to do that. We'll pass this matter.
It's now up to the prosecution to decide whether or not to dismiss the agreement.
Everyone turned to the prosecution. The question now was this: was this plea deal a mistake? Should they take it all the way to trial and go after the maximum sentence? Jordan Clee's family made a difficult choice.
I have had a very lengthy discussion with the victim's mother as well as his grandparents and some family members. They understand that obviously this is the defendant who brutally murdered their son by shooting him in the back of the head. He's shown absolutely no remorse. However, the Clee family does want to move on with this. They want to get some closure from this case.
Even Wright's defense attorney, clearly unsettled by what his client had just done, stepped in to salvage the moment the best he could.
My client asked me to apologize to the court. His smiling was in no way meant as disrespectful either to the family, to the victim, or to this court. My client is 17 years old. He has some emotional problems and frankly was scared. And some people display fear by smiling.
But no one in that courtroom had forgotten what they'd just seen. The judge handed down the sentence, 25 to 52 years in prison, a number that would give Wright a chance to one day walk free, but only after spending most of his youth behind bars. Outside the courtroom, Wright's mother addressed reporters.
Do you think he took this lightly? Do you think he took this seriously? How do you think he...
I don't feel like he understands exactly what's going on because of his mental conditions. And
Danta Wright's courtroom smirk left the judge speechless, but Nikolas Cruz smiled with his attorney as families of 17 murdered children told him how he destroyed their lives. This is Nikolas Cruz, a young man now sitting in a Florida courtroom, staring down 17 counts of premeditated murder, 17 counts of attempted murder, and a string of other charges for a school shooting so heinous they shook the country to its core. But all these, there were warning signs.
My name is Nick, and I'm going to be the next school shooter of 2018. My goal is at least 20 people with an AR-15 and a couple tracer rounds. I think I can get it done. Location is Stone Douglas in Parkland, Florida. It's going to be a big event. And when you see me on the news, you'll all know who I am. You're all going to...
4 months before the shooting, someone using the screen name Nikolas Cruz left a chilling comment on a YouTube video. "I'm going to be a professional school shooter." The owner of the channel reported it to the FBI, but they couldn't trace the comment back to anyone. That missed lead would soon lead to horror.
Here's the plan. I'm going to go take an Uber in the afternoon before 2:40. From there, I'll go onto school campus, walk up the stairs, unload my bags, and get my AR and shoot people down at the main courtyard.
Because on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2018, Nikolas Cruz delivered on that promise. With a legally purchased AR-15 style rifle and a bag full of magazines, he entered Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. But this wasn't a sudden impulse. Cruz had timed it to the minute. At exactly 2:19 p.m., when hallways were starting to fill and students were preparing to head home, Cruz began his attack.
Nikolas Cruz, seen here loading an AR-15 in the hallway of Stoneman Douglas High School as a frightened freshman walks past. The Sun-Sentinel reporting that according to that freshman, Cruz telling him, "You'd better get out of here, things are gonna start getting messy."
He moved through the building methodically, first floor, then second, then third, firing round after round, classroom by classroom, hallway by hallway.
Holy. Oh my God!
911 dispatchers were bombarded with calls.
In all, there were 157 emergency calls, many made by parents getting texts from their kids.
There were 3 shots in your room. There were 3 shots in her room. Okay. Oh my God.
You can hear the emotional plea of one mother talking to her child on the other line.
I love you. I love you. It's going to be fine. Can you hide somewhere? Can you play dead?
Inside, it was a war zone. 17 people were gunned down, students, teachers, and coaches, while 17 others were left wounded.
In the back of the room in the corner and just waited, and we just covered our ears. It was insane.
I saw 2 girls dead next to each other, holding hands.
I heard 6 shots, loud shots. Right after I heard that, I was like, oh my God, we gotta go. So I started running as fast as I can.
It was one of the deadliest high school shootings in American history. And when he was done, Cruz dropped the rifle, peeled off his vest, and casually walked out of the school with fleeing students. He made it all the way to a park before police finally caught up with him. In court, no one doubted what he did. There was footage, the ballistics, the confessions he made. His lawyers didn't argue innocence. They tried to do damage control. They spoke of his troubled childhood, a mother addicted to drugs and alcohol, and a brain damaged by exposure in the womb.
And Miss Deacon will tell you the drugs that they would do, the alcohol that they would drink. And she will tell you what the streets of US 1 and A1A were like in the late 90s. And she will tell you that despite both of them being mothers, the most important thing was them getting high and getting drunk and doing whatever they had to do.
And I love you, and I know you don't believe me, but I have to live with this every day. And it brings me nightmares, and I can't live with myself sometimes, but I try to push through because I know that's what you guys would want me to do. I hate drugs, and I believe this country would do better if everyone would stop smoking marijuana and doing all these drugs and causing racism and violence out in the streets.
But the prosecution wasn't having it. They played online videos for the jury. They also showed disturbing posts that Cruz had made prior to the shooting. They told the jury that the shooting was a well-calculated and thought-out plan.
That came from the various accounts. The first one is from Nikolas Cruz Macavor at gmail.com on July 4th, 2017 at 12:06:18 UTC. I can't wait to kill black people and rape a girl in 2020. I will try and kill at least 15 people. May I not die in vain. Second one is from the Nikolas Cruz Makarov.
And then the victims' families stood in the courtroom and relived their worst day.
Mr. Hickson, is your father Mr. Christopher Hickson?
Yeah.
And is there something that you'd like to tell the jury about your dad?
Yeah.
What is that?
It's okay. I miss him.
Are nothing but absolute garbage. I wish you black people would just disappear. You're nothing in society. That's why in 2020 you will hear me on the news. I will kill as many black people as I can, and I will make sure I kill a lot. I will wear body armor, and I will be heavily armed. No mercy, no forgiveness, no regret. I will kill you ends. Again, the full word was used.
But through it all, Cruz sat there with no remorse whatsoever. At some point, he was smiling with his lawyer, and his attorney even gave the middle finger right there in court.
When these people are upset about specific things that have gone on from that table, like shooting the middle finger up at this court and laughing and joking, Miss McNeil, be quiet.
When victim impact statements were delivered, Cruz didn't even look sorry.
Other inmates, boy toy. A prison where your fellow prison inmates are just waiting to tear you apart, because from what I hear, child killers are highly frowned upon and hated in prison.
You will look back at the time that you spent in the Broward County Jail and see it as it was a hotel compared to the prison where you are headed.
The fact that I have to share my world with you is disgusting. The fact that I have to breathe the same air you breathe is reprehensible. I can't wait till that ends.
After months of this trial, the judge delivered the sentence.
All 34 counts of the indictment for each sentence is to run consecutive, that is, one after another.
Nikolas Cruz was sentenced to 34 consecutive life terms, one for every life he ended or shattered that day. And as the gavel fell, Cruz still did not look remorseful for his actions. Nikolas Cruz laughed with his defense team, but how does that compare to Anthony Allen, who went off in a furious courtroom rant, insulting the judge and refusing to accept any responsibility at all? This is Anthony Allen, a 19-year-old man standing in a Niagara County courtroom, facing a charge of second-degree murder for the brutal killing of 24-year-old Renee Greco, a supervisor at a group home for troubled teens. It was June 2009, and inside the Avenue House group home, something horrific unfolded. Two residents of the group home, Anthony Allen and his co-defendant, 18-year-old Robert Thousand, turned on their supervisor, beating her to death with a table leg while she sat playing cards. According to prosecutors, the motive was clear. Allen and Thousand wanted to cover up a previous theft, and Renee, who was trusted and respected by staff and teens alike, stood in the way. Police arrested both teens hours later. In police custody, Thousand chose to cooperate with the authorities. He pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter and agreed to testify against Allen in exchange for a lighter sentence. On the stand, Thousand said Allen was the mastermind behind the attack.
Robert Thousand. He testified that Allen planned the 2009 slaying to cover up a theft.
The trial was tense. Every detail chipped away at Allen's defense, and when the jury finally returned with a guilty verdict, it was no surprise. But the courtroom wasn't finished with him yet. At sentencing, Allen didn't stay silent. He stood up and launched into a fiery, defiant monologue.
Which included the victim's family, of course. His attorney told the judge he advised him not to read the statement, but as you'll see, he read it.
I'm pretty sure you have been waiting to be able to hold someone responsible since day one. But the fact of the matter is that I'm not responsible for the death of Renee.
He wasn't done. Allen then turned his anger toward the bench, accusing Judge Sarah Sheldon Spaziani of bias and disgrace.
You disgraced the title honorable, and you don't deserve to have it in front of your name.
His shocking remarks came while he read a prepared statement his attorney advised him not to read.
But if Allen thought he'd have the last word, he didn't. Judge Spaziani responded, with the entire courtroom hanging on her words.
I have very rarely in my life looked into the eyes of a monster. And from the first moment I saw Mr. Allen, he's one of three.
And then she sentenced Anthony Allen to 25 years to life in prison. Outside the courtroom, the families and loved ones of the victims spoke to the press about the shocking behavior of Allen.
His own speech showed what we knew all along, that his respect for women and authority is why he was sitting in that courtroom today.
He is cold-blooded. He is evil, and it is true. Everybody, including staff, was scared of him.
We got the best that we could get, and it's good enough. He's done. He's gone.
And now Renee can rest in peace.
This nightmare is over.